Right, so we've come to the last of this lecture in this small lecture sequence, looking at vocabulary for different tones of letters. And this last one, we're going to focus on the formal letters and the vocabulary that can be used within these. Now, as I mentioned before, formal vocabulary tends to be probably the most difficult, the most advanced, and it's also kind of weird. Definitely formal letter language is a kind of language that doesn't really appear anywhere else in our vocabulary. It is in formal letters that you see words taking strange formations, sentences taking strange constructions, and whole expressions that seem sometimes to be taken straight out of the 18th century even. So the best thing to do here is just to try to memorize these expressions and understand the context in which they are used. The bulk of your letter should still be about the actual content and responding to the task requirements. So don't worry too much about the exact meanings of all the expressions. They should be clear enough, but don't worry about their constructions and whatnot. Just try to memorize these expressions and use them at an appropriate time. Don't memorize them mechanically. That should go without saying. Don't memorize them thinking, yes, I'm going to put this here, this here, this here. Just try to incorporate them into your vocabulary. But remember that they are really just used for formal letters and shouldn't really be used in other scenarios. Sometimes yes, but a lot of the time no. As always, find examples as you read, which you should be doing quite a lot, and practice regularly. So let's move on to the examples. Okay, same thing. We're going to start with the easier ones. It just happens to be the case that the apology, condolence letters are the easier ones. So have a look at these expressions, see if you can put those words in the right order. And when you've done that, you can hit play. Let's take a look. First one, please accept my apologies for. Very typical thing that we would write if we were writing an apology to someone in a formal way. Please accept my apologies for the delay in replying to your letter. Nice and simple, that one there. Next one, I would like to apologize unreservedly. That's a typical word which you would not use in conversation. This is what I mean. Apologize unreservedly for, but it looks absolutely appropriate in a formal letter. For instance, I would like to apologize unreservedly for the scheduling error made in your name last week. And this last one here, I put it under apology condolence letter, but didn't seem to fit anywhere else. This is where we're maybe ending a working partnership with someone. Maybe you could use the word firing someone, but just to end some sort of agreement. It is with deep regret that I must. It is with deep regret that I must inform you of the termination of our working agreement. There might be other scenarios where you could use this expression as well. Now there is one more kind of letter which is very specific to condolence letters. We're offering our condolences for maybe an illness in the family or a death in the family, but in a formal way. Maybe we don't really know the other person at all. And when we get letters like these, and I've added this as an extra because I don't think I've ever seen a letter like this in IELTS, but that's not to say it couldn't come up. We can use the expression, I was deeply saddened to hear. I was deeply saddened to hear about the death of whoever it might be. I was deeply saddened to hear about somebody succumbing to a particular illness, whatever it might be. Either, like I say, I don't think I've ever seen a letter type like this, but that's not to say that it might not appear in future. Okay, thank you letters now. Longer expressions, so we're grouping some of the language, and I want you to see if you can put the words in the right order. When you've done that, hit play. Let's have a look. Really the only long one here is the first one, which is I would like to express my sincere gratitude. That I would like to express is quite a useful expression just to remember anyway, because we can often follow it with nouns that are appropriate for formal letters, in this case gratitude. I would like to express my sincere gratitude for your assistance with our community project. Very, very simple one, the next one, but that doesn't mean that it's not appropriate for a formal letter. Thank you for. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me on Wednesday. You don't always need to go with this fancy pants language. You can sometimes revert to the basic, particularly if you have already used some of the fancy language. It's better to use the basic language than to repeat the earlier language. And the last one, I greatly appreciate. That adverb greatly comes up quite a lot in formal letters, so a useful one to remember. I greatly appreciate your willingness to listen to my concerns and take them on board. Request letters now. Let's have a look at some of these examples and expressions. Okay, so same thing, if you can put those words in the right order and hit play when you're ready. Let's take a look. Nice and simple one to get things started. I am writing to request. Notice it's not I am writing to ask. We try to move to more formal verbs when we're in formal letters. I am writing to request a formal interview with you and your partners in the immediate future. The immediate future, another really useful expression when dealing with formal letters. I would be grateful if you could. Again, nice and polite, not if you can, but if you could. I would be grateful if you could provide me with the blueprints of the building as soon as possible. Maybe we're writing to an architect. Last one, your swift cooperation is greatly appreciated. Example, nice and simple, thank you for your help. Your swift cooperation is greatly appreciated. This might come at the end of a letter when you've asked what you want the recipient to do for you, or you've requested a particular thing from them. Moving on to complaint letters now. Now these ones are a little bit longer. So we've got some grouped words. So I want you to put those groups in the right order. And when you're ready, let's have a look. Okay. First one, I am writing to express, notice that from before as well, express my gratitude. In this case, I am writing to express my concerns, or I am writing to express my frustrations. Pretty similar, slightly different, may change depending on the context. I am writing to express my concerns regarding the service of your hotel staff. Maybe we're not happy with how we've been treated at the hotel. I would like to draw your attention to. That may sound a little bit informal to you, but don't worry, you trust me, that's definitely a formal expression. I would like to draw your attention to the appalling treatment of our family dog received during our visit to your veterinary clinic. Okay, so we're writing to a vet there. And the last one, if no action is taken, I will be forced to. Now, hopefully you can notice here that we are using a conditional sentence, first conditional. If no action is taken, I will be forced to. Very, very useful for suggesting what action you will take if you are not appeased by the person that you are writing to. If no action is taken, I will be forced to take this matter to senior management staff and to write to my local newspaper. Notice that more formal vocabulary there as well. Take this matter. Invitation letters. This one sounds very fancy. Again, we've got some groups here. And the last one there, just some letters. We did look at this before. See if you can put those letters in the right order. Okay, when you're ready, let's have a look. First one, you are formally invited to attend. You are formally invited to attend. You would never say this to a friend. You wouldn't even write this in a semi-formal letter. It sounds very kind of royal almost. So you are formally invited to attend the wedding of Amanda and Simon on June 4th, 2020. Next one, I am writing to extend. No, notice it's not express, but extend. We use this verb extend with invitations in a formal way. I am writing to extend to you an invitation. So I'm writing to extend to you an invitation to the Regency Ball on June 4th, 2020. And those letters are ordered RSVP. Please RSVP, and here's another nice formal expression, at your earliest convenience. Again, it's not the kind of language you would use in any other context, so at your earliest convenience. Job application letters. Now these didn't appear in the other lectures because really they're limited to formal tones. You should always be writing in a formal tone when you're applying for a job. So let's have a look at some expressions here. A couple of these with groups. Again, see if you can put those groups in the right order and put the words in the right order for the second one. Okay, if you are ready, let's take a look. Okay, first one here. I am writing to express my interest in. A really good way to start a letter, to start a job application letter. I am writing to express my interest in the position of senior teacher at your school in West London as advertised in the Gazette newspaper. And that's an important point to make as well. If you are applying for a job, it's important that you explain the position that you're applying for, the place that you're applying for, in this case the school in West London, and also where you saw the position advertised, in this case the Gazette newspaper. Next one, this is where you would start talking about why you should be employed. My skills include, nice and simple, my skills include, and then maybe a nice 3-part list here: strong classroom management, excellent rapport building, and close attention to detail, whatever's appropriate for your letter. And the last one, and this would appear in the form of a relative clause, maybe defining, maybe non-defining, depending on the context, which I believe sets me apart from other candidates, and a nice expression to use to say why you should be chosen instead of other people. Here's an example. I have worked in several different countries across 4 separate continents, and it is this experience which I believe sets me apart from other candidates. So the example that we're using here uses this expression in a defining relative clause, but it might be used in different contexts in a non-defining way. For example, we might say, I believe I have strong classroom management, comma, which I believe sets me apart from other candidates. But the way that it's being used here, it needs to be used as a defining relative clause. If you're not sure what I'm talking about here, then please do some research on relative clauses. If you do have the Task 2 video course, there's a good lecture on this in the grammar section. Let's finish by looking at how to end these letters, starting with the final sentences. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Pretty similar to that semi-formal tone that we talked about in the last lecture. Thank you for your consideration and cooperation. Notice the spellings here, some people get these words wrong. I would be grateful, we looked at that earlier, I would be grateful if you could respond at your earliest convenience, and notice that we're even including a conditional here. We're going to be talking about that in the secrets lecture at the end of the course. Please let me know if I can be of any assistance in this matter. Similar thing happening here, increasing that grammatical range. And then we finish letters like this by writing either yours sincerely, comma, followed by your full name, or yours faithfully, comma, followed by your full name after a line break. But when do we use yours sincerely and when do we use yours faithfully? There is a reason that we use each one. Well, we use yours sincerely when we do write the name of the recipient. So, dear Mr. Jones. If that were the case, if we wrote dear Mr. Jones, dear Mrs. Smith, we would write yours sincerely at the end. If we don't write the name of the recipient, if we write, for example, dear sir/madam, or to whom it may concern, then we write yours faithfully. It's important that you get those the right way around, so try to maybe think of a trick to keep those locked in your mind. Maybe think Sincerely Smith, very common surname in English, Sincerely Smith, faithfully forgotten the name, maybe. So S with S, F with F, Sincerely Smith, faithfully forgotten the name. It's more likely that you just wouldn't have the name or you didn't know the name. But whatever helps you to remember those, as they could impact your score. Okay, so that takes us to the end of this 3-lecture sequence on vocabulary for different tones across different purposes. And in the next lecture, the last lecture of this section, we'll be talking about different strategies for paraphrasing, talking about collocation, about spelling, and generally all the other things that are going to impact your vocabulary score so that we can maximize your lexical resource score in the IELTS exam.